Hello, my name is Dmitry, and we continue to build an e-commerce website that will go into production. We finally finished to build our development environment, and we're ready to implement our first full-stack user story. We will create new database table, we will create new GraphQL resolver, and we will implement homepage in this part. Let's actually move feature homepage into a progress. And let's check out our homepage. That's the design of our homepage. We have two images. On click, we will be redirected to our shop page, and we have a logo, navbar here, nothing more. It's a little bit tricky on front-end side because our designer wants us to fill all space with our images and do not have any scroll on most devices. And it's not that difficult to implement, but it requires us to have lots of specific style for specific breakpoint. But let's start it with creating new database table. To do that, we should update our schema file, Prisma schema file, with the home block. We have just title, image path, and navigation path on our model. But also we have RGB background. This one will be used by NextJS image component to have an background under our images. And it have just RGB and A values on it with some validation on it. Let's actually delete migration first, because as I said, we will keep everything under init migration before first deploy. Run migrate directory. Okay, I didn't delete directory. I just did, or maybe not. Let's erase all data, call it init. And let's check out our DB Studio. We have home block, RGB background, and user tables in place. Pretty empty. Yep, that's it for setting our database. And let's implement our resolver. To do that, we should create new library called feature home block. Inside API, this one will be buildable and with the tag scope API. Just as a test framework. And now inside home blocks, we can remove those unneeded files and we will generate our crud GraphQL resolver by doing Nx generate resource inside project API feature home block, type graphql-code-first with crud and name home block. We have our files in place and we need only resolver and service related files. Entities and details will be generated by our Prisma GraphQL generation. Let's remove home block. And where do we got our types? As you remember, inside schema, we have generator, nest GraphQL generator, which will output some types inside this folder. Let's make it happen. Let's actually run our development environment, and it will seed our database and it will generate our desired types. Inside DB, generated DB types, we already have our home. Let's search for a class home block. As you see, based on our Prisma schema, we have our GraphQL types, and we have also arguments. Create one home block. We have our home block type, input type with the validation on it, and on create we have also validation on our RGB table data. And I actually don't really recommend to use this GraphQL generation in any bigger project, because it's very often when you want to modify your output types before serve it to the user, to the front-end client, and it really binds you to your schema, Prisma schema. And yeah, it could be considered as actually an anti-pattern to do that, but it really saves time and it will generate everything that you need just like that. So I really use it as a shortcut, and if you do it the same way as I'm doing it here, you should be mindful. And yeah, actually you can write your own DTOs inside like DTO folder and so on, even if you're using this GraphQL generation method that I'm using. Let's remove those types, and I'll fill it in the same way as we did it in previous videos, like create one home block arcs and so on. Here we should, inside our home block service, we should inject our Prisma service. Private read-only Prisma service. Let's call it just Prisma and import Prisma. Inside our model, we should add Prisma service provider and actually export home block model. Inside our service, now we can refer this Prisma dot create void home block. But in this case, I would like to actually add include, and I'll include RGBA color, create home block, create, and then RGB background, true. So RGB will be included into response. And I'll include RGB background for every response. Now we're good, and let's actually include our model inside app model, home block model. Right here it will rebuild GraphQL schema, and now we're able to actually create and query our home blocks. Inside GraphQL playground we can create our first home block by doing mutation, create home block, and we will include RGB background, create RGB. Let's try to run it. Yep, and we have our response. Let's check if it inside our I should run Studio to observe the data. Yep, we have our color inside and also home block. Yeah, it will be under home block left. What I mean by that, we should create new spaces inside DigitalOcean, because we will use DigitalOcean to actually host this website, and we will deploy our services into DigitalOcean. So spaces is an analog to S3 buckets. If you work with AWS, we will create new space inside Frankfurt because it's closer to me. We will enable CDN. We will call it Okino dev, and let's create space. After it's done, we are under our Okino dev bucket. Let's create folder. We want to call it home block. Let's get back to S3. Just home block. Just save it. And inside our folder, we want to upload some files. Let's have it 4 times bigger to actually increase size and show how NextJS processes your images. Let's hit export and upload it into our S3 bucket. And as you see, it's 1.15 megabytes. Pretty a lot for an image. Let's do the same for a second image. Make it 4 times bigger and upload it here. Let's just rename it and call it left. And this one will be right. Let's now try to actually query our images. Inside our playground, let's hit get home images. Something went wrong. I guess we're not returning RGB background. Let's find out why. Inside our service, home block service, where we do find all, yeah, we're not including RGB background. True. Let's try it one more time. I guess it's not rebuild it. Let's wait for rebuild. Yep, rebuild successfully. Now we have only 1 block actually here, and we want to have 2 blocks there. Let's change ID and call it right. One more, and let's get our blocks. Yeah, we have both blocks in place. Let's try to query it on our NextJS application. Let's head into a data access GraphQL and create new get home blocks GraphQL. So as you remember, we have data access GraphQL and we have generator for generated our SDK. That's SDK based on our GraphQL queries and notations inside this file. As soon as I filled it up and hit save, it should trigger GraphQL generation. Let's reload from disk, and we will have get home images method on it. Yeah, and it is possible because we're using this command called start GraphQL watch. We're using GraphQL code gen with the config, and we're watching for graphql.ts file changes, and we generating our SDK. So I hope it's clear. On inside page, we can now try to get home images. Inside here we have home blocks. Let's call it now home block. We have an ID, and for src we will have something like it's created like that. So endpoint, that will be s3 spaces endpoint plus slash, and then blocks image path. So it should work like that, but it's not, because endpoint is not actual URL. We need an environment variable called okina web, how do we call it, storage endpoint and it will be, let's head over GraphQL, and we want actually CDN endpoint, but we're fine with that. Let's copy it over, and we're not gonna use HTTPS, or will we? Yeah, we will use it like that, and let's call it URL then, URL. And we also need endpoint, because we will point, because we should handle it with the NextJS config. I'll show you how it works in a minute. So as we added one or two actually environment variables, we should modify our web ENV right here. So we will have storage URL and endpoint process.env.okina web storage endpoint. Yeah, and let's modify our interface URL endpoint. Good. What's wrong with that? Type URL storage URL endpoint string. Yeah, now we good. So let's also modify our validation file, validate web. Now we have one more validation file, web storage vo. We will have here URL and public endpoint just is string. Okay, let's try to rerun it to verify that we are good with our environment. Nope, something went wrong. Let's check out why. Verify ENV. Yeah, we failed with storage. Is declared here. Storage URL. Okay, what's wrong with that? Yeah, yeah. Thank you. validation script. Yeah, I just forgot to use it actually, and we'll call it storage. Yeah. Let's run it. And we validated our environment. Let's rerun our development environment. And we good. Now we can use our URL inside our page. Inside page, let's const web env storage URL. Let's see if we're able to render something. Inside localhost. Is running fine? Yeah. All right. We don't need it actually. Let's remove it. Yep. But something actually went wrong with that. And why is that? It might be that actually NextJS. Oh yeah, I'm not even using NextJS image component. Let's call it image. And now, as you see, we need to specify host name inside our NextJS config. Inside NextJS documentation, that's the way how we're working with the remote images, because those are not on our server, on other file storage server. Let's modify NextJS config image, and we will have here, can I import? Yeah, I guess it should be process.env.okino web storage and point with HTTPS, and other stuff we will have empty. Let's rerun our server. And let's check if we're able to render something. Not really. Localhost. Response failed. That's a weird one. Accident. Yeah, I guess those are private images by default. And let's manage permissions. Make it public. Yep. And finally, we are able to get our images. And as you see, inside a column called size, it only 10 and 6 kilobyte, because NextJS did lots of stuff for us, and it shrinks image size for us just like that, because inside DigitalOcean it was like 1 megabyte images. Thank you NextJS for having such awesome components for us. Now we can start implementing our homepage. Let's start checking what we got. We have a logo. We should have a file for it, SVG file. We have some texts, and we also have some colors, color palette, and typography. Let's start with adding fonts. NextJS doc says we should install font and use it inside our root layout. Sounds good to me. npm I next font. After it's installed, we can have our lot of font. Add import statement, and on HTML, I guess we should have class name, not the class name. And now we'll have our font in place. And what about our colors? We can head inside Tailwind config, and in theme we have extend. We will modify colors, and we will specify black, gray colors, and so on. Yep, and we will use it just like that. Tailwind will generate specific colors for us. And let's start with actually going into a head TSX. And here we will import some meta tag to set a correct initial scale size. And now we're able to actually start implementing our homepage. Inside layout TSX, we should have some container that will wrap our components, our pages. It will be a div, and inside we'll pass children. Yeah, that's just a simple container that will have max width of 1500 pixels, and for different resolutions we will have different left and right margin. Let's see how it looks like. Inside here, as you see, not growing more than 500 pixels, 1500 pixels I mean. And if we will shrink it into a mobile-like view, you'll see we have some margin on it. So that's it about our container. On very top of our page, we will have a navbar, and we will need a logo for it. Let's add a logo SVG file in here, and let's call it just logo. Let's head back into layout, and let's create navbar component. And inside navbar we will have a logo. It will be an image component. Let's import it with logo SVG on it. Let's check it out. Yep, we have our logo in place. And also we will have some items. Those will be links, but NextJS links. Help me copilot. Yep, and we have menu and card. We'll not gonna work much on navbar in this video. We'll just have dummy links with some gap on it. Let's check it out. Yep, we have our links, but styles are a little bit off. Let's have it like in here. Let's actually make it mobile-like. Yep, and let's increase size a little bit. Yep, like that. We should change the size a little bit. It should be cart, not car. And here we can select both and say class name equals text sx. It's not helping me. Case and color black, text black. Let's check it out. Yep, looks way better, and the color is correct. Now we should work on our home images. But before we will do that, I want to show you some demo. As you see, background was shown and then image was loaded. And how NextJS team does it. As you see, they use blur data URL and placeholder blur. They use this code snippet to do that. We will create a separate library for this specific we will create actually shared utils library, and we will keep this piece of code in there because it's kind of util. We will generate a new library called utils-shared inside directory web buildable with tag scope web at this time. Yeah, just let's copy this piece of code and head into utils. Let's delete those and create RGB to data URL.ts. RGB to data URL. Let's export it. RGB to data URL. As you see, it gets few numbers inside, and it will output some data URL with our placeholder color. I'll show you how it works in a second. To don't bother you with getting to Figma and back to create the homepage, I'll just paste it in here. And we have mostly everything in place. Let's import all needed dependencies and check how our homepage behavior at the moment. Filed vars. Okay, now let's start with /absolute. Okay, dokie. Storage endpoint dot. Wait a second. Oh, no, not endpoint, but URL. Now it should be good. As you see, we actually have now everything what our designers wants from us. It works on mobile perfectly. Let's have like something like Galaxy Fold, nice and in here, and if we will lay it down, it will change their size. For iPhone 4, for example, we'll have scroll. For iPad, we'll have it like that. iPad Pro, a little bit weird, but if you will lay down, it will have it nicely. And that's how it changes with its size. So pretty nice. And let's get into a mobile view one more time. Why would I use data URL? For example, we can create at the moment something called block.rgb background and have we have inside RGB. Yeah, that's what I'm expected to have it. RGB. Is it? Okay. RGB. Blue data URL. RGB to, how do you call it? Oh, I didn't export it. Export. RGB. But now let's resolve utils-shared. Yeah, let's rerun our server. Site backend.json, serve all, stop and rerun. In a few seconds, we'll get it in here. Okay, I have a typo there. Now we have it. It actually loads instantly, but let's slow it down a little bit. For somebody who using slow 3G, it will look like that. Even it's just 10 kilobytes. So to improve user experience, we can have placeholder blur. And now we will see just gray background, and then image we will pops in. So a little bit better. So yeah, in faster G mode, you will have it like that. So you have like placeholder loader for that. So actually I implemented everything that I want for this part, and we are having our link element, and we are having our desired image sizes by using CSS calc function and viewport height. Some bunch of stuff is happening here. It's not that important. It's really just tweaks and tricks to make it look better on each screen size. We have overflow hidden to prevent our image to grow more than height size. We have it as object cover to have this nice effect, and also we have some transition. So if you hover on image, it will increase its size a little bit with nice effect, and on hover we have a title on it called shop. It will redirect you to the shop, but we don't have any page for it, so it will be 404. And that's it for this part. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.